The categorical imperative is a moral principle developed by the philosopher Immanuel Kant, which states that ethical actions must be guided by universal moral laws. Unlike rules based on personal desires or consequences, the categorical imperative requires individuals to act in a way that could be applied as a universal standard for everyone. It is an absolute moral obligation, meaning that certain actions are always right or wrong, regardless of personal circumstances or outcomes. This principle encourages people to act based on duty and moral reasoning, rather than self-interest. Now let's explore the origin of this concept. The concept of the categorical imperative was introduced by Immanuel Kant in the 18th century as part of his ethical philosophy. He argued that morality should not be based on emotions, consequences, or social norms, but rather on rational principles that apply to all rational beings. Kant developed several formulations of the categorical imperative, the most well-known being that one should only act according to rules that could become universal laws. His ideas were a response to moral theories that focused on personal benefit or external consequences, aiming instead to establish a system of ethics based on duty and reason. Now let's look at an example of the categorical imperative in practice. One example of the categorical imperative is the principle of honesty. If a person is tempted to lie to get out of a difficult situation, Kant's theory asks whether lying could become a universal law. If everyone were to lie when convenient, trust in communication would break down, making truthfulness meaningless. Since a world where everyone lies would be dysfunctional, lying cannot be a universal moral rule, meaning that it is always wrong, regardless of the circumstances. This example illustrates how the categorical imperative requires individuals to consider the broader implications of their actions. Now let's examine some strengths of this approach. One strength of the categorical imperative is that it provides a clear and consistent moral framework based on reason rather than emotions or consequences. It treats all individuals equally, ensuring that ethical decisions are based on fairness and universal principles. Another advantage is that it promotes integrity and accountability, as individuals must consider whether their actions could be justified if everyone acted in the same way. Additionally, the categorical imperative prevents moral relativism by establishing fixed ethical rules that do not change based on personal preferences or situations. Now let's consider some criticisms of this theory. One criticism of the categorical imperative is that it can be too rigid, as it does not consider the complexity of real-life situations where moral decisions often involve conflicting duties. For example, if telling the truth could cause harm, Kant's approach still requires honesty, even when lying might protect someone. Another issue is that universalizing every action can lead to impractical moral rules, as some situations require flexibility rather than strict adherence to absolute laws. Additionally, the theory assumes that all people can apply pure reason to ethical decisions, but human emotions and social influences often affect moral choices. Now let's explore an alternative ethical approach. An alternative to the categorical imperative is utilitarianism, which focuses on the consequences of actions rather than universal moral rules. Utilitarianism argues that an action is ethical if it produces the greatest happiness or reduces harm for the most people. Unlike Kant's approach, which applies fixed principles regardless of outcomes, utilitarianism considers the specific situation and weighs the benefits and harms of different choices. While the categorical imperative emphasizes duty and moral consistency, utilitarianism allows for flexibility, making it a practical approach in complex ethical dilemmas.